Rock star existence is one of decadence, one of riches and glory and unending temptation. From partying all night long to stage shenanigans, it's more and more. But for some of the best rock stars the world has to offer, sometimes more is simply too much. We're counting down 10 such rockers today who were too intoxicated to rock. These drunken tales of uncontrolled excess prove just how much some rock stars took rock and roll. Let's begin. Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath's frontman, became the embodiment of decadent rock and roll excess. But there was one performance that went into history for all the wrong reasons. In 1982, in Des Moines, Iowa, Ozzy had been drinking beforehand, reportedly getting through a whole bottle of whiskey. When he did finally take to the stage, it was clear something was wrong. He was stumbling around, barely able to stand. His singing was a catastrophe, and fans watched in terror as Ozzy slurred his way through the songs, forgetting the lyrics at times. But the most vivid memory of the night was when a fan threw a bat onto the stage. Assuming it was a rubber replica, Ozzy did what Ozzy does. He bit off the head.
Bat on the stage, and he thought it was a rubber bat, whatever, and he picked it up and bit the head off.
But to his horror, the bat was real. The performance was aborted, and Ozzy was rushed in for rabies injections. This bizarre encounter cemented Ozzy's reputation as a performer liable to erratic and sometimes mad behavior. While his live shows are the stuff of legend, this is one of the most terrifying moments in rock history. In spite of all of this, Ozzy has embraced his fame. But this show is a reminder of the risks of the way in which even the greatest rock icons can be irresponsible. Steven Tyler. Aerosmith lead singer. Steven Tyler is best known for his wild stage shows and outrageous antics. But his drug addiction finally took its toll in the 1970s on stage and off. Perhaps the most notorious was in 1976 at a concert in Philadelphia. Tyler had been celebrating before the show, consuming a lethal combination of drugs and alcohol. When Aerosmith went on, something was obviously amiss. Tyler was staggering, slurring his words, and having trouble keeping the beat. His trademark raw, raspy voice was way off key, and he appeared to be disoriented, forgetting half the lyrics to the band's biggest hits. At one point, he staggered over his microphone stand, and the band members ceased playing. The show limped along for another few minutes, but it was obvious Tyler was in no shape to play. He kept getting lost on and off stage, and his band members tried to cover for him. In the end, Aerosmith cut short the show, and the crowd was left confused and frustrated. Tyler eventually admitted that his partying lifestyle was almost enough to end his career. Although he cleaned up years afterward, this performance is one of the most notorious instances of his drug abuse issue when the band was most successful. Vince Neil, Mötley Crüe lead singer. Vince Neil was no stranger to rock and roll decadence, but one of his most infamous shows was in 1997 when he played a solo tour date in Houston, Texas. Neil had been partying all day, and when he got on stage, it was clear that he was in no sort of shape to play. Throughout the first half of the show, Vince was struggling to keep pace with the band. His voice was raspy and off-key, and he couldn't even remember the words to his own songs. Fans were stunned as he careened around the stage, sometimes slurring into the mic or skipping verses. The energy that normally defined his performances was completely lacking. Mid-show, Vince stumbled and fell to the floor, and a ripple of confusion washed over the audience. Some fans thought it was part of the act, but as he struggled around on the floor trying to get up, it was clear that something was amiss. Despite the best efforts of his band members in attempting to get the show underway, it was clear that Vince wasn't going to be able to continue. The show lasted a mere matter of minutes, and fans were left reeling. It was a low point for Neil, who later admitted that his drinking had spiraled out of control. This disastrous show was a warning of the pitfalls of excess and how even the most experienced rock stars can be brought low by them. Scott Weiland. Scott Weiland was the best 90s grunge-era singer, but his addiction was always bigger news than his talent. Weiland was so stoned on heroin during a 2001 Detroit show that he couldn't even get the mic in the correct position. His speech was slurred and he mumbled his way through the performance, out of sync with the music. The audience was stunned as Weiland left the stage and returned in a dazed and confused state. The concert was cut short, and it was a wake-up call for Weiland, who then checked into rehab. Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison, The Doors' brooding, dark lead singer, was known for his poetic lyrics and stage presence, as well as for his larger-than-life legend as a man living on the edge of excess. Perhaps his most infamous performance was at Miami in 1969, when Morrison's substance abuse and out-of-control behavior were at their worst. Prior to the concert, Jim had been drinking and was likely on other drugs as well. When he finally appeared on the stage, it was clear something was wrong. Rather than starting up the music, Morrison spent most of the concert rambling on, screaming obscenities at the crowd and taunting them with outrageous stunts.
Fucking friend and loving, come on!
He was utterly out of his head, refusing to sing the songs properly, and instead breaking into a rambling monologue that left fans and band members shocked. During the course of the evening, Morrison's performance stunts grew more and more outrageous. He took off his shirt, taunted the crowd, and even dared them to storm the stage. The concert was a riot, with fans having no idea whether they were at a rock concert or some sort of sideshow that had gotten out of hand. The Miami show ended with Morrison charged with lewd conduct and indecent exposure, a highlight of a kind in his life. Though his talent was undeniable, this disastrous performance was a defining moment, a symbol of the self-destruction that would eventually claim his life at the age of 27. Axl Rose. Axl Rose was accustomed to being in the middle of controversy, but in 1991, during a concert in St. Louis, his drunken shenanigans got him arrested. Having already had a good amount of liquor prior to the concert, Axl was becoming increasingly agitated with a fan in the audience who was snapping pictures. Midway through the song, Axl leaped off stage into the audience to brawl with the fan, and chaos erupted. When Axl returned to the stage, he shouted, "Well, thanks to the lame security, I'm going home." He dropped the mic and left the stage, and a huge riot erupted in the audience.
"Well, thanks to the lame-ass security, I'm going home."
The building was left in disarray, and Guns N' Roses was banned from St. Louis for the foreseeable future. Sid Vicious. Sid Vicious, the notorious Sex Pistols bassist, was a human catastrophe when the band were playing their final concerts. At one of their concerts in San Francisco in 1978, Sid was on heroin and could hardly stand. He played the bass out of tune and kept falling onto the stage between songs. The band members tried to carry on, but Sid's condition was too bad. The concert was cut short and was one of the last concerts Sid played with the Sex Pistols before his own death in such a tragic manner in the following year. Keith Moon. The crazed drummer of The Who, Keith Moon, was the stuff of legend for his off-stage and on-stage craziness. But at a San Francisco show in 1973, Moon took it too far. After a night of drinking and a cocktail of drugs, Moon stumbled on stage and rolled over the drum kit. The band tried to rouse him from his stupor, but Moon was out. The Who guitarist Pete Townshend asked out loud if there was a drummer in the house who could finish the show.
Can anybody play the drums?
And a 19-year-old Scott Halpin volunteered. It was a night that would be remembered by concert-goers for the rest of their lives. Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix, widely considered the greatest guitarist of all time, also battled excess. Hendrix was so high on drugs that he could barely play at his 1970 Isle of Wight festival show. His normally flawless guitar playing was sloppy, and his singing was off-key. Hendrix even put his guitar down at one point and just stood blankly in front of the audience. The audience, who had traveled to witness a legendary performance, stood in stunned silence as Hendrix struggled to play his way through the concert. It was a sobering reminder that even the greatest musicians aren't immune to being overwhelmed by their own excesses. These stories remind us that while rock and roll is all about pushing the envelope, sometimes that envelope gets pushed too far. If you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks for watching, and rock on.